I got started when one of my uncles were fighting with the Japanese, and he brought back a Japanese flag. And I wanted to develop some film, so I took the flag, the red bullseye of the Japanese flag, wrapped it around a flashlight, and that was my safe light. Well, it wasn't so safe. It just messed up my film that I developed, and it didn't work. So I then said, I got to learn a little bit more. I was about 9 or 10 at the time. And when I was in high school, I got a job after school in a laboratory delivering pictures, and they taught me how to develop some film and to print, and that's where I got started in high school. Kodak has been, in my life, a very important one. First, the first rolls of film was Kodak film. When I went to work with People's Gallery, People's Processing Laboratory on 23rd Street, Kodak was the main supplier. So I've grown up with Kodak. Kodak has been my godfather. Martin Luther King, that's an experience. I was working doing weddings and bar mitzvahs, and I wanted to branch out. I was teaching photography at Parsons School of Design, and I had Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday when I taught, but Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I was off. So I started covering the protests, and eventually I photographed Dr. King, and then CBC Canada knew of my work, and they asked me that King was coming to New York on the 15th of April, 1967, to make a speech in front of the UN. So they informed him that a photographer would be photographing him. I didn't go up and tell him ahead of time. I waited till the end to talk to him, because to photograph him as the photographer, I would get stilted pictures because he would perform for me. Well, what happened was I waited, and I started photographing at the demonstration, marching with Dr. Spock from Central Park to the UN, at the UN, preparing, getting in front, photographing him in front of the UN with the pictures, with the UN in the background. And then at one point, I jumped up on a table and I photographed down with him surrounded by all his bodyguards. And then I jumped off and hands and knees crawled up, and I photographed him straight on, but coming from between somebody's legs. And he was deep in thought. And I went click, and he heard the click, and then he started to smile. The first picture is dynamite. I made a poster out of it and all that. The second picture, he starts to smile, destroyed. The whole moment was destroyed, but the first picture I got. Subsequently, there's about 5 or 6 pictures from that day, from a few minutes, were the apex of the best pictures I've made of Dr. King. So I was there covering all of these events and so on, and I became his friend. And the historic moment is that first series of pictures I took of Dr. King in front of the UN. A lot of these pictures of Martin Luther King were done with Kodak Tri-X film. And I found that I could rely on Tri-X to get what I wanted. And in fact, I could shoot late at night, early in the day, with or without flash, and I got very good results. And I've had these experiences with these people because, well, they all became my friends. Why? I don't know, because of my personality. It's given me a way of communicating. Now, Floyd McKissick is speaking, and the room is crowded. There's no way to get a decent picture. So what do? I get on my hands and knees, and I go stand or sit on Floyd McKissick's feet. Now, the table is on top of my head, and he's speaking, and I'm listening to him, and he's really giving them hell. And he's yelling and screaming, and I set my camera with the self-timer, and all of a sudden, my wife is at home looking at this conference, and there's my hand going up like this, and you hear click, and my hand going down. and then my hand coming up and going down. And Floyd McKissick, as he's speaking, he's getting curious. What the hell's going on? This camera comes up and camera goes up. I got the front page in the New York Times the next day because Floyd McKissick is very intensely looking at this camera, got the shot that made the front page of the New York Times. So that's one of my iconic moments, but that's the way I function. First of all, the situation with lighting. If you're going to use flash, the flash has to be bounced, because if it gives a hard, when it's projected at the face, it brings out all the negatives because it gives cracks and pimples and all that stuff. So what you've got to do is bounce the flash off the ceiling. That's the first thing if you're going to do flash. Try to soften the light so that you don't have harsh shadows. Now, all of these things, the way you do it is you take the flash or flashlight and project it to the, or take a bulb off of a lamp and put it behind you, or put a piece of cardboard in front and bounce the light. So that evens the light out. The Kodak cameras that they have today, and especially digital cameras, are very effective, and I recommend that. As far as posing, I'm a guy, my philosophical, I like people to be natural. So if you can get like a family, like a father or a mother, get them to sit down and start talking about anything, but not looking at the camera, and start taking pictures. Then you get the slices of when somebody is making a squint or a face, because that's what you remember people by, the essence of something, not the posing and holding a stiff position. Like that's what I would recommend. So to be natural, to take the picture.